Hi, welcome to City Vision University. I'm Andrew Sears and I'm the president here at City Vision University. And social entrepreneurship, this course is one of my favorite courses at City Vision. It's also one of our most liked courses at City Vision. Our students get a lot out of it. Just a little bit of my background, why I love social entrepreneurship. So I got my start in entrepreneurship as a teenager. I started up my own lawn care business, and then I went to grad school at MIT, co-founded a research group with one of the fathers of the internet, did a .com startup, consulted to a lot of venture capital-backed companies and other companies starting up new products for a while. And then I realized my heart was for the poor where I came from. I came from the hood in Kansas City, so I kind of pivoted my whole life around using my tech skills for good, and started an organization called Tech Mission, and have been essentially a serial entrepreneur since then, using Tech Mission as a vehicle for that. A serial social entrepreneur. So the summary of what this course is going to enable you to do, we want you to understand the field of social entrepreneurship and the traits of social entrepreneurs, but more important than that, we want you to be able to apply the theories from lean startup, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, needed to rapidly adapt to uncertain environments. The world is becoming more and more changing, more and more dynamic, and more uncertain, and this is a methodology that helps you adapt quickly. The third thing is that you would be able to interview customers and stakeholders to assess something called product market fit for a new initiative. And then a lot of the course is going to revolve around you using a tool called a business model canvas for your new initiative, and revise it based on customer feedback. And then the whole course is following a constructionist philosophy, where you're going to develop a pitch presentation for your new initiative to a group of potential investors that could be donors. So one of the most important things to understand in this course is how it relates to your personality type and culture. So many of you have taken other City Vision courses where we've used this thing called Competing Values Framework, and I'm going to give a refresher, but I mainly want to explain how that relates to this course. So often you have staff with ministry culture, and they're often opposed, or there's a tension with them on the staff of the business culture. Then there's a staff with operations culture and maybe accounting and control, and then staff with entrepreneurial culture. And the principle is that to be a good manager, you need to be able to work in all four domains. You might have one that you major in, but you need to be balanced. And the same thing with an organization. It needs to be able to do all four of these things. And depending on its environment, it may have a more stable or less stable environment. And this fits into what's called the Competing Values Framework. Now, why that's important is to understand how this fits into City Vision's goals for you in our program. So the goal, all our management and ministry programs are designed around four main areas of competency. We want you to have competencies: ministry, entrepreneurial, operations, and business and funding. And we have different courses. So we have marketing, grant writing, nonprofit fundraising. We have ministry competencies, cross-cultural management and ministry. We have the operations, so accounting, human resources, a lot of the detailed things. And this course is really the signature course. So this is the primary course in all of our programs that is making sure that you have the entrepreneurial competencies, because our accreditors, and we follow an assessment model where we have to show, do you have these competencies? And this is the primary course that does that. Now, we have other courses that do that too. Intro to Entrepreneurship is for more stable and more known businesses, and uses a business plan rather than a business model canvas. This Leadership in Under-Resourced Communities is about change, but it's largely about demographic change. How do you navigate demographic change in your organization? Educational program development, one of the main things in that is how do you create change through training your staff and your clients? And then transformational change leadership is about how do you just lead change overall. So this is kind of the dynamic quadrant. And then we want you to be able to integrate this, and we have the beginning and the end of that through our strategic management course. Now, the other thing to realize for a lot of you, if you're familiar with Myers-Briggs, So you have people who prefer the big picture and who are flexible. So that's NP in Myers-Briggs. Then you have people who are detail-oriented and organized, and that's the SJ. So often there's a correlation. So I'm an NP. I love new programs. I love new social enterprise. I love this create quadrant. My left hand, or my offhand, so to speak, is this quadrant. Often there's a tension between the diagonal on this. So some of you may be SJs. In this course, and that would be your detail-oriented and your organized. In this course, we're intentionally going to make you work on your, not using your preferred personality type. So I remember whenever I was in college, there were a few courses I took that were SJ oriented, and it was really difficult. And I tried to force them into my mentality of NP, and I didn't get good grades because I tried to force them into my mentality. I couldn't use creative accounting in the accounting class. That's, how you get arrested. In the same way that you have to follow the rules of the course, you have to follow some of the creative rules of this course, even if it isn't the way your brain typically works. That's the whole point of, going to a graduate program or going to a bachelor's program, is to work on your strengths, but also to work in your weak areas. Now, the other thing to recognize, just like people, there's different types of organizations, and there's different stages of development that your organization's in. So an early stage startup in this diagram, this is showing that this organization is very strong in the adhocracy or create quadrant. They have good clan, they have some business, but they have no control. So that's an early stage startup. They have no standard operating procedures. Then as you go to a mid-stage startup, you start to get a little bit of standard operating procedures, but you're, rapidly innovating. Then you go to a late stage or later stage organization. This might be a highly established rescue mission that's been around for 100 years, and it's risk averse, so it's still good relationally. It's still good, in terms of getting its funding, but it has standard operating procedures for everything. And then the idea is, as there's change that happens, you have to reinvent the organization. So that's, one question to ask is just, what is the culture of your organization? What is the stage of your organization? Now, another way to think about this is there's, the organizational assessment of culture, but there's also the competencies. So I talked about create competencies. The main focus of this course is to help you develop create competencies. Now, in our some of our other courses, we have you go through a workplace behavioral profile. And what it does is it actually lists more specific competencies. So in the create quadrant, there's specific competencies. And if you take this test, what it does is you can create a map that'll show, how strong you are in various competencies. I'm not going to go into that. I'm just explaining this in context of that in case you already took that in our other courses. But what I do want to do a deeper dive on is explain the create competencies. Is the create competencies are visionary. So we're going to really try to help you anticipate and understand customer needs. So one of the main things you're going to do in this course is meet with customers to discuss their needs, identifying the changing needs of customers, anticipating what the customer will do next. So you're going to be proposing a new initiative. So you're going to have to do all these things. An innovator. So you're proposing a new initiative. So initiating a bold project, starting ambitious programs, launching a new effort. So whenever you come up with your ideas, is it going to help you do these things? And then less so on this would be, later stage, but the motivator is inspiring people to exceed expectations, inspiring direct reports to be creative, encouraging direct reports to try new things, and getting unit members to exceed performance patterns. So, the key question to ask in this course is, what is your preferred quadrant personally? So if it's anything other than the create quadrant, then this course is designed to stretch you to be a more balanced manager, and it's going to feel like using your offhand. And what's your organization's preferred quadrant? If your organization's dominant in the operations control hierarchy quadrant, then you may need to think outside the box. You may need to say, well, let's imagine that this, the executive director has asked me to create a social enterprise or a new initiative. for this. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is just the educational design philosophy of this course. We cover this in every course, but I want to reiterate. So, you're going to go through the reading, you're going to go through the videos, and I would strongly encourage you to take notes. And this is how you're going to reinforce your learning, because studies have shown if you just read something, you only retain like 10%. So take notes, you'll retain more. And then we're going to have you do material summary. So that way you might retain, 30 to 40 to 50%, right? And then forums and live meetings. Most of the course is going to be focused on applying Lean Startup and Business Model Canvas, doing analysis. That's where you break up the components of the business model canvas. Evaluating, that's where you're going to be going through and doing pivots and refining. And then at the very end of the course, you're going to be doing a new initiative pitch presentation as if you're presenting to a group of funders. Now, one of the key, if I had to say probably the key concept to get in this course, if there's any one thing I want people to get out of this course, it's the Lean Startup concept. And the idea is, how do you rapidly innovate? How do you, rapidly learn? And the idea is that you start off and you build something, and you're going to have a minimum viable product, an MVP. That's not an MVP in sports, but a minimum viable product, and you're going to build that. Then you're going to do something to try to get some data with your MVP. And there's a big push for interviews in this learning philosophy. Then you learn, and then you pivot. So what are the potential pivots through this data? So throughout this course, you're going to be trying to go through this cycle. Now, one of the things I also want to explain is a lot of this course is going to revolve around this Udacity course. They call it a course, but it's actually videos that is done by Steve Blank. So Steve Blank is considered the godfather of a lot of the concepts in this course of entrepreneurship. He's probably the top educator in Silicon Valley. The guy who invented Lean Startup was one of his students. And then now, the guy who created Lean Startup for Social Change is really more like a grandchild of the concepts. And he designed this course that's absolutely amazing to explain a lot of these concepts. So be sure to go through these videos, take good notes, and each week we're going to assign you lessons. You can sign up for this course for free. And I think that you'll get a lot out of this course. So if you have any questions, please ask your faculty member. Thanks a lot.